Everybody. That was exciting.
There she is.
Hey, since it is 5:03, I'm going to go ahead and get started. All right. So, hey, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Kirsten Barron, and I'm here as a Campaign for Equal Justice board member. This is our Beer and Justice event, and usually we are at Boundary Bay, and the big garage doors are open, and it's sunny, and we have great food and wonderful company from the campaign folks, and we are standing around tall tables, drinking good beer, and visiting with each other for the very best of reasons, civil legal aid. And we find ourselves in very different circumstances tonight. But in true Whatcom fashion, we are among the first to try one of these kind of fun summer civil legal aid events over Zoom. So thanks for doing that with us. It's actually, we have 50 people who registered. And I hope that over the hour or so, folks can duck in and just really enjoy. It was interesting because I thought, oh, let's give some incentive to folks to register and to come. And so I said, hey, first 20 registrants, you get a little box with a beer from Boundary Bay and some pretzels and some mustard. And what I realized when I was talking to people about delivering these boxes is almost every person said to me, oh yeah, I don't care about the box. I'm coming to listen to Justice Whitener speak. And so it was clear that was the only incentive we needed to get folks here. So I'm delighted that she's here with us tonight. Just as a reminder, and I also want to give just a little shout out to the people at the Swinomish who have registered. My son dropped your boxes and he was directed to leave them at the police department. So I hope that works out okay. That's where he left your boxes, is at the police department. So thanks for joining us. And I know that you folks are joining to hear Justice Whitener speak as well. So we're going to have some fun tonight. We're going to do some really good stuff for civil legal aid. We're going to hear from law advocates about what's happening in law advocates. We're going to hear from NJP about what's going on with NJP locally. Of course, we're going to hear from Justice Whitener as well. So we have a really full lineup tonight. Let me just give you like kind of the few rules of the Zoom Party Road, which are these. So if you're not speaking, mute yourself. So if you're just on the call, mute yourself. It looks like most people are muted, but it's better if you mute yourself when you're not speaking. And speakers, when it's time for you to speak, of course, you'll just unmute yourself and speak. We're going to have time at the end for questions for Justice Whitener. So go ahead and put those in the chat if you would like to ask those, and I will take a look at those. And also, feel free to just chat in that box about anything having to do with civil legal aid, a shout out, whatever it happens to be. Let's just create some fun for ourselves in that chat box while this is all going on. So I will turn it over to Natalia from the campaign to talk about our sponsors and to introduce our first speakers from Law Advocates.
Right. Thanks, Kirsten. Hi, everyone. And I wanted to make a shout out, first and foremost, to our sponsors tonight. So thank you to Kirsten Barron's firm, Barron Smith Doggart, as well as Coppinger Carter for sponsoring this event. We really appreciate your support every year. You guys sponsor us every year. So thank you for coming back. And I also wanted to just do a little toast. Please grab your beverage of choice, and thank you all. It's really, really nice to see everyone's faces. Again, I know I've said that before, but it just, in this time of isolation, it's really important to try to stay connected. And it's great to see all of you here for a cause that we all really care about. So cheers. Cheers to justice. Thank you all for being here. And with that, I want to introduce someone most of you all know very well, Michael Heatherly from Law Advocates, and he's going to fill us in on what's going on the ground in Whatcom County for legal needs.
Thank you, Natalia, and it's great to see everybody. Thank you for joining us here in Bellingham. Actually, it's kind of good that we're not outside because it's raining like crazy. But it's great to see everybody. We are still alive and well here at Law Advocates. For those of you who don't know, we are the volunteer lawyer program from Whatcom County. And we also administer the volunteer lawyer program of Island County. And we are still going strong. We're working remotely. Our offices are not open yet, but we're still serving clients. We recently reopened our street law program, which is our almost 30-year-old drop-in clinic that we do, advice clinic. We are doing it as a virtual event, and we are trying to replicate the live version as much as we can. So we'll be doing our third one on July 11th, and we still have clients and we still have attorneys who consult with the clients, but they do it by phone now. We've actually gotten really good feedback that I think a lot of people, clients and attorneys, actually kind of prefer doing it this way. They feel like the quality of the interaction is actually better when they can do it by phone. It's just a strictly one-on-one type of conversation rather than being in, it's usually in a drop-in clinic at the library. It's very crowded and there's people waiting in line, there's some pressure. So we think this is an opportunity to actually learn how to do some things better. It's one of those things where you have a disaster, but you can, rather than just going down the drain, you can figure out, hey, there are things we probably should have been doing before that this is forcing us to do. We also, another project that we're working on right now is we're beefing up our tenant clinic significantly. We got some emergency funds from the state, thanks to the Legal Foundation of Washington and the Office of Civil Legal Aid. And we've been able to add contract attorneys and additional half-time staff position. So we're gearing up when the eviction moratorium ends on August 1st. We're expecting a lot of evictions to be filed because there's going to be about a 5-month backlog of potential evictions. And even under normal circumstances, we see a lot. Our regular tenant clinic is pushing about 300 clients a year anyway. That's under a healthy economy. And so we're expecting a lot of people to be facing eviction in the coming months. So we have beefed up our capabilities to deal with that. And we're talking to the judges in Whatcom and Island County to work with them to figure out the most efficient way to do this. We're also working on some more innovation. These are still tentative things, but I've talked with the Whatcom County Library System, and we're kind of brainstorming about ideas. They have 10 branches around the county. Almost every community has a library. We're talking to them about maybe having stations at each of their branches where we could have a laptop and we could arrange to have client meetings virtually in those locations, which again, is one of those things we probably should already be talking about doing, even aside from the pandemic. But we're hoping that we'll come out of this better than ever. So far, so good. We don't know what our funding is going to be next year. We're in pretty good shape now, considering everything. We still need everyone's support, but we're still alive and kicking. And I would like to now turn it over to the chair of our board, Ziad Youssef.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ziad Youssef, and I'm very honored to be here today and share the podium with our wonderful guest, Justice Whitner, today. I am this year starting my term as board president of Law Advocates. I think it's my 4th year on the board. I've loved my work. I've loved the passion that all of our board members bring. And I've learned a lot about how to sustain an organization by surrounding yourself by wonderful people who all have great and valuable input to do or to offer. And when I started, Michael messaged me and said, Ziad, what's it feel like to start your term in the middle of a pandemic where we may not exist when it's over? And I felt like it, like many other businesses felt when it started. But I realized that the work that we do is important, so we continue to do it. We figured out a way quickly to pivot and be agile, which is what we need to do in justice. And when I thought about the 5 minutes that I had here, what I wanted to say, I really, what rose to the top for me was that justice is a journey and not a destination, that it is a process of revealing where and how we can deliver justice. And specifically in law, at Law Advocates, where we use the court system to help deliver access to justice to so many of our members in the community who need it and who might be harmed otherwise. I think that the phrase unprecedented time is one of my least phrases. It is not an unprecedented time. We've had this precedent before many times. And to say that would make it so that we were having an excuse not to step up. We can step up. We can continue our journey to justice, and we have stepped up. The only thing unprecedented about these times is the next decision we make, because we've had to make them on the fly. And each one of them has felt like could be the worst decision, it could be the best decision. But coming from a background where my name was chosen so that no one in the country where I was born could tell what religion I was from. If my parents were to name me George or Nick, I might be persecuted. If they were to name me Mustafa or Muhammad, I might be persecuted in different areas. And so we came to America, where the color of my skin kept me from being persecuted potentially. And we're facing that currently. And we're facing that in a journey to justice. And I believe, and it hurts me, it pains me to see the American flag burned, to see businesses destroyed, to see graffiti on our city hall. But at the same time, I understand that no great change happens without discomfort. And I'm not excusing that discomfort or that harm, but I'm saying that we need to, in our journey to justice, be willing to be uncomfortable and to embrace the fact that it's going to hurt a little bit to get somewhere greater than we are today. And I look forward to continuing to do my part for the time that I'm going to continue to serve on the board of law advocates. And I think as attorneys, we can use the existing precedent to regulate our executive branch and our legislative branch, or at least check and balance them. Because what I've noticed is that those branches are asking for too much power, and our judicial branch has been the branch that has come through and relied on precedent to get us through the injustices of today. And I look forward to more of that. So thank you for 5 minutes of time. And I'm excited to hear from Justice Whitner today.
And now you need to turn it over to Karen.
Thanks, Michael. You told me. I would like to turn it over to Karen Phillips, who's also thank you. She was a wonderful mentor to me, and so is Lisa in her term. We did race equity training at Law Advocates, and I'm going to turn it over to Karen Phillips, who's now with NJP and on the board with us at Law Advocates.
Thanks, Ziad. Tough act to follow. I have the misfortune of going after Ziad and before Justice Whitner, who I know everyone really wants to hear from. So I'll try to keep this as quick as possible. But I'm Karen Phillips. I'm the immediate past chair of Law Advocates, and I am a staff attorney at Northwest Justice Project, which is a statewide civil legal aid organization. So we have about 15 locations around the state, and we do have an office here in Bellingham. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we're seeing in terms of legal problems resulting from the pandemic. Just in terms of the work that our office does, we serve 4 counties. We serve Whatcom, Skagit, Island, and San Juan. We have an office in Bellingham, and we have one in Mount Vernon as well. And just in terms of the number of people who need our services, these numbers are a couple years old, but even a couple years ago, in those 4 counties, the estimate from the Office of Civil Legal Aid was that about 133,000 people were eligible for services from our organization, and about half of those were in Whatcom. So that means that there's about 70,000 people just in Whatcom County who are in need of civil legal aid and actually are eligible. We have 7 full-time attorneys and 1 part-time, and we are hiring another. And so putting us at 9 attorneys might make us be the largest law office in Whatcom County or in the running. So that is actually really exciting. that we have so many people helping out in Whatcom County, and that's largely due to the efforts from our different funders, including the Legal Foundation of Washington and the Office of Civil Legal Aid, so I thank them for that. In terms of, we do a lot of stuff. We do housing, employment, public benefits. We help people who are fleeing from domestic violence. But what we're seeing as a result of the pandemic is that the highest demand for our services, we get weekly reports of the calls that are coming in, and those are mostly in the areas of domestic violence, housing, and unemployment. So we have been trying to respond to those crises. We know that domestic violence is one of the biggest problems that our clients face and is most serious, and we know that that problem has worsened a great deal because of the pandemic, because of people are isolated in their homes with their abusers without access to those services and privacy. I mean, people can't even get on the internet or make the phone calls for help. So we're trying to do a lot to try to reach people, and those calls are coming in. We have a weekly case review, and we had 5 new cases today that we were looking at. And so there's a really great need for that. And we've been continuing to go full bore caseloads. We've been working from home, and we really haven't, I mean, the work is slower from home, but we are working harder than ever. And we've been able to represent people in all 4 counties with those problems. In terms of the housing, like Michael mentioned, we are waiting for the cavalcade of evictions to come in. We've been trying to do a lot of community outreach to let people know about the eviction moratorium that is now set to expire on August 1st. But landlords aren't stopping trying to evict people. Instead of going through the courts, what we've seen that they're doing is trying to kind of do self-help evictions, do it themselves. And they've been doing that by trying to lock out tenants, just change the locks, keep them out. We've had them trying to shut off utilities to make it inhabitable, shutting off water, shutting off electricity. And so we've been assisting a lot of people of trying to deal with those problems and educating landlords that no, you can't do that either. Just because there's a moratorium doesn't mean that you can just figure out a way on your own to evict these people. And then we also have been, there have been, you know, as I think probably everyone has heard through the news, there's been a huge flood of unemployment claims. And the department has been completely overwhelmed, and there's been a lot of denials. So we have, you know, we immediately responded. We had 3 different attorneys get trained up on how to deal with unemployment appeals. And we also did significant outreach with Native communities to let Native American tribal members know that they also have access to those benefits. So actually my colleague who's on this call, Therese Norton, she helped present a webinar on unemployment benefits for tribal members and tribal staff members, and that was super well attended. We had over 50 people, and we've had a bunch of cases coming in as a direct result of that outreach. So I could go on and on about all the great work that our office is doing, but I know that everyone wants to hear from Justice Whitener. So if anybody has any questions, you know, that we can talk about later about what we're doing, you can certainly put those in the chat box. And with that, I will turn it back over to Kirsten to introduce the Justice.
Hey everybody, I'm not sure if you can see my face, but can you hear my voice?
We can hear your voice.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I am a little bit technology challenged. Of course, this is the day I'm technology challenged, but it is just my delight to be able to introduce our newest Supreme Court Justice today. It's as I was reading through her biography, she has just this really long history of awards and recognition for diversity, for inclusion, for access to justice work. It's really an extraordinary kind of repertoire of experience and commitment that she brings to the bench. But I tell you what was really interesting to me when I was reading about her are just a few things I want to mention that I just felt like for me just gave me more of an idea of the person. So first of all, she's our only Trinidad-born justice. She actually was an accountant, and somebody recognized that she had a very analytical mind and suggested that she go to law school. And she'd always envisioned herself being a business person, maybe somebody who would do business with the US and the Caribbean. And I just find it, especially in these times, it's interesting how our lives take such big U-turns or changes. And this is a change in her life that I know that we in this state are really, really grateful for, because to have somebody on the bench who has such a deep commitment to access to justice, to disability rights, to gender equality, to LGBT awareness, it's an extraordinary thing. I just feel super excited. It's like when I look at the bench, I think to myself, yeah, now this is starting to look like my America. So thank you so much for being here, Justice. We're just delighted to have you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for inviting me. I appreciate it. I want to correct something, two things, actually. My last name is pronounced Whitener, not Whitner. And I was not an accountant. I actually have a background in international marketing. And when I got to Washington State, I couldn't find a job. So I took a job in an accounting firm doing accounts receivables. So my background is kind of varied like I am. But good afternoon. I'd like to thank you, as I indicated, for inviting me to chat with you. But I'd also like to thank all of you for making a difference in the lives of many who are in need. It took a worldwide pandemic to make many see something that I've always seen. And that is, we are all one opportunity away from being in need of assistance. Therefore, it benefits all of us to ensure that we use our privilege as attorneys when we can to give back to those less fortunate. The legal needs of those less privileged have always been of great concern. However, the COVID-19 pandemic has raised the numbers dramatically, specifically in areas of unemployment, tenancy, domestic violence, immigration, and healthcare. Many are experiencing trauma, physical, mental, and economic trauma, just to name a few. And like all traumas, it is having a painful, distressing, and disturbing impact on their sense of self-worth. The trauma has created an environment of fear, and fear has a tendency to silence a person, where they lose their voice, they lose who they are, they lose themselves. In order to be the inspiration we were born to be, and to become the leaders we were meant to be, each of us must find our own voice. We've heard the slogan, justice is a right and not a privilege. And that is true. But to ensure justice is a right for all, those of us that have achieved some level of privilege have a responsibility to not just use our privilege to be right, but now we must also use it to do right. While we should not be blamed for every advantage we get to enjoy, we must be held accountable, however, because we are always responsible for how we use our power and our privilege. Once we find our voice, we then have a responsibility to act. As attorneys, that is our charge, and it is a charge of service. We must embrace the responsibility that comes with the well-earned title of lawyer or attorney, and we must act to address inequities wherever they exist. Through our actions, we can demonstrate the qualities and the values of good leadership. So as I always say, our charge as attorneys, and yes, I'm a justice now, but I always say that's a title that comes and goes through elections, but I'll always be an attorney. So as attorneys, it is our right and our responsibility to know what true leadership is. And true leadership comes from knowing that it is never about you. It is always about them, the others, the ones without voices, money, homes, family, their minds, their body, or their soul. We already see them because we've already figured out ways to try and help them connect with them and work for and with them. Let us continue to think of the individuals who cannot or who are unable to participate fully because of the inequities afforded to us, because of our professional privileges. Someone once said, the greatest success stories were created by people who recognized a problem and turned it into an opportunity to serve. Our opportunity is now, so let's not waste it. I have been recognized, as you've heard, for service, and I could not think of a better way to be recognized. And I intend to continue to serve, because that's how I see my job, as an attorney, as a judge, and now as a justice. I hope you join me and continue to join me on this journey. Thank you for your continued service to others.
Everyone can clap.
All right, we can certainly unmute ourselves to have a little festive thank you.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're just delighted you're on the bench. We're just so excited to have you here this evening, and we're just so excited to have you on the bench, frankly. It's wonderful. I am going to do something, and I'm just going to I think when sometimes it's really good to draft off of the good stuff. And I see an opportunity to draft right now. And even though you can't see me, I'm going to just say a few words about why we're here this evening. So this is about civil legal aid. It is about supporting those folks who provide legal aid and those of us who get support from law advocates to be able to do pro bono work in a really effective and efficient way. I know there's some new folks in the meeting, and I just want to just say a couple of things about the structure so people understand. So the campaign actually raises money. The Campaign for Equal Justice actually raises money for the 30 or so legal providers in Washington state. And so the campaign actually funds law advocates. The campaign also funds NJP, both of whom we've heard from tonight and all the great work they're doing. It also funds programs that are statewide but serve our Whatcom citizens as well, other counties as well too, like the Unemployment Law Project, which is super important right now, Northwest Immigrants' Right Project, Columbia Legal Services, all of those folks. And I know that Natalia is going to put a little link in the chat box on how folks can donate. There it is right there. Thank you so much, Natalia. What I want to call out tonight though is this situation has changed the way that providers need to give legal aid, need to deliver legal aid. You heard that from Karen, you heard that from Ziad, you heard that from Michael. And what I love about our organization so much is that that is exactly what we do. Like, we look out, we figure it out, and we pivot to determine how it is we're going to serve folks' needs. Because Justice Whitener said it, you know, if we don't give justice to everybody, it's a privilege, and it's not, it's a right. And we need to make that true for everybody in our state. And so I just want to point out that right now, the justice system our civil legal aid system has really pivoted to work on preventing eviction, securing unemployment benefits, defending immigrants, and protecting domestic violence survivors. So it's one of the great things that I love about civil legal aid is that we are all the time figuring out from the clients, what do they need and how do we provide it? And it is hard sometimes to figure out how to make a difference from your living room couch, from your office where you sit by yourself with your door shut. But this is a way that you can really, really make a difference. And so I encourage you to click on that link and just to make a difference, because we know how good this work is. And so thank you for considering. And now that I have, drafted off of Justice Whitener, we're going to be able to ask her some questions. And so let's see.
Well, Karen, before you go into the questions, I need to let you know that I actually was appointed by the Supreme Court when I was a judge in Pierce County to the Office of Civil Legal Aid Oversight Committee. So I'm a judicial member on that committee. So I'm extremely committed to the different entities you've identified. This is really a worthy cause. And there are a few things that justices and judges can speak on in regards to fundraising. And this is one of them. We can speak in regards to fundraising on issues that can assist access to justice in our courts. And I want all of us to really think hard about that because there are a lot of individuals who are in dire needs right now.
Justice Whitener, you don't know this, but I'm a lurker on those Oklahoma meetings. I'm one of the attendees on mute who never says anything. I heard you speak so beautifully at the last meeting. And yeah, I'm also do some EJC work. So yeah, I've been in those wonderful meetings with you. They're great stuff and good folks. Okay, so if you guys have questions, go ahead and pop those in the chat. And I just have a question that I want to ask, just as you're a newer justice. What's the most surprising thing about the job so far? What did you not expect?
That I would be doing it in a virtual world. I am the only justice that got sworn in a virtual world, did the entire term in a virtual world that ended actually yesterday. So I have no idea what it's like to sit on the bench with my colleagues. I have never been in a room with all of them. So I think that's the surprise.
And are you all doing everything by Zoom or some other?
Yes, Zoom and TVW, correct.
Interesting. So Karen has a question. Can you talk about how our Supreme Court is responding to the Black Lives Matter protests?
I think we responded in a letter. And if you haven't received a letter, we can always forward that to you. But we've taken a stance in regards to injustice, and we've made a very strong statement regarding that. We don't get caught up in regards to particular causes and titles, such as Black Lives Matter. However, we do make a statement that is in line with, I guess, their ideology, but the ideology of many other groups as well. It is about making sure that all of us are safe and are treated fairly in the system.
Okay. So now that you are quote unquote back in session, what does that look like for the justices to be doing business together now?
We're not in session. Oral arguments, the last one was yesterday. So now we're writing. So we have different decisions that we're taking stance on, and we're writing with our law clerks, and we're doing it virtually. So our law clerks, we have Zoom meetings, and we edit and re-edit and resubmit different opinions. But yeah, it's quite different, quite different.
Interesting times. And I was going to ask you what the primary, like when it's as far as like the daily job, is how it is different between being a Superior Court judge and being a Supreme Court, being a Supreme Court justice. But I'm assuming that it's just more of a focus on writing and reading and researching as opposed to listening to folks talk.
Well, I was a trial level judge, so I do miss the constant docket. You know, everyone is always in the courtroom doing something. And I did 3 years of a civil rotation. So that rotation actually prepared me, I think, quite well for the Supreme Court, because civil rotation, you're predominantly dealing with a lot of motions and different subject matters. So I see it pretty much the same. And I was told before being appointed that the way I handled my motion dockets was very much like an appellate argument. And now I'm beginning to see that is true, because, you know, you prepare, you come in ready to ask questions because you have a limited amount of time. So you get straight to the point. And then, of course, you then have to digest that and figure out how you're going to decide. I wrote some of my opinions as a Superior Court judge. So, you know, what's funny is I get to the Supreme Court and I'm thinking I have to write my opinions. I didn't think I would have help. So the law clerk, having help with law clerks is a little different. So I'm still trying to get used to that, because I looked at them and I said, what exactly is it you do? Because I write. They said, "We help you write." So I was like, okay. I guess as the next term, which I've been told this term was pretty light compared to normal, since I don't know what normal is. So next term, I think I would really see the benefit of having assistance as far as the writing and the researching and everything else. But, you know, when you're a Superior Court judge, you do it all. So I came in doing it all until I realized I needed help.
And I think there's always that question of how helpful can a new graduate be? You know, that's always the issue, right?
They're very bright, very bright, very bright.
So I just want to say thanks to folks who are donating: Elizabeth, Nicole, and Lisa. And I saw that my mom donated, Margot. Thanks so much, Mom. Shout out to you. We have another question. Could you please discuss the sunsetting of the Triple T program and how that affects access to justice? Kind of a hot topic right now.
And I will not discuss that because that's an
Oh, is it
inappropriate
pending?
topic.
Okay, fair enough. We have another one from Larry that's also interesting. As a judge, how difficult was it for you to sentence individuals for crimes or charges that you did not personally believe in? For instance, I think it's Larry, would hate to sentence someone to life in prison.
Larry, I have been a judicial officer officially since 2015. But prior to that, I was a pro tem judge in district court and municipal court. And one of the things I learned very early on is you have to remove yourself from the decision you have to make, because it's not about your belief or your position, it's about the law. So in regards to sentencing individuals, whether I believed in it or didn't like it, I tried to remove myself from the emotional aspect of it. Where I can exercise my discretion, I did, depending on the facts that I heard. But if you get caught up on every decision you have to make, especially on a criminal rotation, you'll probably end up with some issues. It's very traumatic. And you're dealing with someone's liberty. You're dealing with someone's life. Just like on a civil rotation, you're dealing with people's livelihood. Being a judge or a judicial officer is not easy. Making decisions that impact people's lives daily is not easy. You know, so when it came to sentencing, I took into account different things in regards to what I heard during the trial, in regards to the individual's history, which I would call mitigating factors. I did think they were relevant, but at the end of the day, I always made the decision that I deemed best, given the case that I had in front of me. And as long as I could sleep at night, then I think I did okay. Whether you believe that I did okay or someone else believe I did okay wasn't really relevant to me. It's the fact that I could sleep at night, because that's a heavy burden. Each case I remember very distinctly when it came to the criminal rotation. The other thing is, I was a prosecutor. I was also a public defender, and I was also a private criminal defense attorney. So I've seen all sides of the issues as far as prosecutor not having contact with the individual, public defender dealing with the individual and knowing they don't have the funds. So you're trying to give the best that you can on a limited budget, and then doing private defense and seeing that these individuals have the money to put on a really good defense, you know, if they're willing to spend it. So understanding the different roles, I think, helped me immensely when I got to the Superior Court bench, because I had done all sides to include the judiciary, just not on that level.
It's so interesting that you say that, because that's always been one of the reasons that I've always thought being a judge would be so hard, right? Just figuring out how to get your own mind around it, get comfortable, and move forward. One of the things
it's not about you.
Exactly.
That's something as attorneys and judges we need to always remember. It's not about you.
Right.
You know, it's not about you. It's about your client, or it's about the litigants in front of the judge. It's not about you.
Right. We are in service. We are just in service. We are in service.
Do the best you can.
There's two more questions, and one of them is mine, and one of them is Ziad's. And I'm gonna ask mine first, because I get to do that because I'm the MC person here. one of the things I've noticed about the court is the justices, by and large, are very out there and active on educating the public about the law, supporting access to justice. I feel like we have a very, very engaged Supreme Court bench. And Justice Gonzalez once said to me, that's very unusual because judges are used to people bringing things to them that they react to. They are not used to getting out there, doing it, and being proactive. So I guess my question's twofold. Have you noticed that on the court so far? And what do you think contributes to that? Because I just love it. I just want to know why it's there.
I think it's a number of things, but I think having a diverse bench, different perspectives coming to the bench, whatever level it is helpful because many of us are coming from marginalized backgrounds. I am Black, female, immigrant, LGBT, disabled. I bring those perspectives to whatever position I hold. And for me, when I got to the judiciary, it only made sense to interact and connect with my community, which is all aspects of my marginalized self. So it always seemed like I was all over the place, but it was normal for me. I think when you look at the change that you're seeing from judicial officers interacting with the community and bringing the community into the court, I think it's because you're also seeing a new wave of judges, younger judges, and it doesn't have to do with color necessarily. Different cultures, you know, different perspectives matter, but we're bringing our real life experiences with us, and our real life experiences come from different aspects of the community. And in order to remain engaged, we go back to our community.
Yeah.
I got to Pierce County and at the time, I was the only Black female on the bench in the entire county, you know, and then there was one Black male at that time, Judge Cuthbertson. When I left, we had one Black male, one Black female, and Judge Cuthbertson retired. So the numbers didn't change. You're looking around and you're not seeing anyone like you. So if you thought the litigants weren't seeing anyone like them reflected on the bench, us on the bench, you're not seeing anybody that looked like us. If you think about how many Black female judges you have in the state, start counting, because I tell you, you won't get to two hands. You know, you don't think about it, but that's it. So we tend to go back to our communities and interact with our communities. But we also reach out to other communities as well, because we want them to see us in these positions and interact with us and know that they don't need to be fearful of us. So it's a give and take. And I like the fact that I can use the platform I was given to do just that, reach out to different communities, irrespective of color, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, immigration status. I just go out and fit in. And I think it's really helpful to have young ones look at you and say, oh my gosh, you're a judge? But you're not like Judge Judy. Yeah. That's who they see, Judge Judy. So yeah, we need to get out there. But I will say this, they need to see attorneys as well. I taught street law, and I'm hoping I still can continue to keep my street law class, but I've been teaching street law in Pierce County at Lincoln High School for years. And I would bring attorneys into the classroom. I brought in correctional officers, law enforcement. I tried to make it real to them because I wanted them to see people so that they can aspire to those jobs and those positions. Because attorneys go out there and interact, especially with the young ones, because many of them have never seen an attorney or don't even know what an attorney does. We need to educate them.
It just strikes me as you're talking that, you know, justice is this very, you know, difficult phrase to understand or articulate, but when you get people like you and the other justices in the Supreme Court out there talking to folks, we start to see what justice looks like.
Well, I think justice can be easily defined, and I define it as just, J-U-S-T, treatment. That's what justice is. Anybody who is asking for justice is asking to be treated justly. That's it. It's very simple.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask one more question for Ziad, since I love him so much. This is his question.
Yes.
Is there any discussion in the court about what additional emergency rules may be required to adjust for social distancing, remote hearings, etc.? We practice in 4 counties and we're seeing differences in courtrooms between the same court between Superior and District Courts. So that's Ziad's question about how do we keep doing this?
Well, we have a Chief Justice and we meet and we discuss different issues that come before the court, and then the Chief Justice speaks for the court. So I won't speak for her. You also have to understand that we don't have a uniform court system in Washington State. So you could find courts doing different things, which is what you're probably observing. But they're doing what they can within the constraints of their budget and within the constraints of what the Supreme Court mandates that the courts follow.
Okay, so it sounds like in many respects it'll be a bit of a work in progress.
It has been.
Yeah.
Before getting there, COVID-19 hit. So I was a Superior Court judge and we were working on trying to figure out how to video conference and lock down the courtrooms and communicate with different individuals. I had just rotated into a family law rotation and I realized the difficulty dealing with self-represented individuals. And that's something that was rather shocking to me because I thought we had better service or better infrastructure in place to deal with them. And that wasn't the case. And then at the beginning of that, then I transfer over to the Supreme Court and we're hit with all of the different rules and the different orders. And it was fascinating to see how much work was being put in to try and make sure that our courts remained open, to try and make sure that no one fell between the cracks. We had never gone through anything like this. No one had any playbook they could go back to and say, hey, in such and such a year, we did X, Y, and Z. We also found out how the infrastructure in our courts need upgrading. It's just one thing after another. So just keep in mind that we're human. We're trying to deal with issues that you're struggling with. Guidance, it appears, has to come from the court on many of these issues. And we are working extremely hard to get you the answers that can at least assist you as you move forward. But at the end of the day, I will tell you what I think each and every one of them will tell you. You do what is best to keep yourself safe and healthy. Because you're no good to anyone if you're not safe and if you're not healthy.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for all your work on those issues and all the issues you're working on. And thank you so much for being here. It has just been great to hear you talk about these things and speak to us. And our first Zoom event, thank you so much.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It is making it special and interesting and fun and engaging. And I want to thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all for showing up. I do appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing each and every one of you in person when I can. I get around and I participate in these because they're near and dear to my heart. But continue the wonderful job that you're doing. And bye.
Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for all your donations. And hopefully we'll be seeing each other soon. All right. Take care. Thanks for being here. Thanks for helping with civil legal aid. Good night, folks. Good night, Rajiv.